We're going to start with part 1, hidden cuts. A hidden cut is exactly what it sounds like, but if you aren't in the practice of hiding your cuts, it can be a very easy thing to overlook. There are a ton of different ways to do this, ranging from to
must be my imagination.
Depending on what kind of videos you make, you'll want to take a different approach here, outside of one tool that every video editor should be using: B-roll. B-roll is footage you lay over the main track of your video. It generally relates to what's currently being talked about, or if you're Joshua Weissman, it relates to what you've been talking about for the last 15 minutes. Adding B-roll to your content is super easy in Resolve. All you have to do is import it, double-click the little thumbnail image here, define where you want it to start and end with in and out points using I and O. Then drag this little film icon down into your timeline if you just want the footage. If you want video and audio, just go ahead and click anywhere in the viewer and drag that down. But the film icon will pull the footage without pulling any audio. So it's a good way to make sure that you don't accidentally mess up your main audio track while bringing your B-roll into the timeline. If you pay attention, you'll see B-roll in almost every YouTube video you watch, and there's a good reason for that. We tend to be a lot like the goldfish in a certain disputed study about the attention span of a goldfish. That is to say, if things aren't changing all the time in your videos, people would lose interest and they'll click on another one of the shinies, pulling their attention to other parts of their screen. So we'll use B-roll to re-engage their attention. Another method of hiding your cuts is to punch in and out on your footage. To hide this effect a little better, you shouldn't only use it to hide cuts. Zoom in and out periodically if the content permits, so that this blends in more when you need to use it. When you're using this method, it's super important to make sure you keep what you're zooming in on in the same spot within the frame. For an example, check this out. If I punch in on this frame and my eyes are in a drastically different spot, it looks bad. If I punch in and my eyes are in the same spot on the screen though, it's a lot more seamless. The easiest way to do this that I've found is the Hillier-Smith way, where you put an X or something to that effect and a line on your eyes. In Resolve, just grab a Fusion composition and drag it onto the timeline. Put our playhead at the beginning of it, select it, and jump into Fusion. Once we're in here, we want to deselect the media out with the good old double click. Then add a background node with this button right here, and add an ellipse mask to that with this button. Grab one of the corners of your circle up here and make it small. Now we'll add another background into our node web and put a rectangle mask on it. In the viewer, we'll bring the height down with these edges and the width out with these edges. Once both of your backgrounds are correctly masked, go ahead and merge those together and then bring that into your media out for your finished indicator. Back on the edit page, we can move this around to wherever we need it using our inspector panel. Now we can zoom with confidence. When you're done with it, just select it and press D to disable it. And we can use that somewhere else by pulling it over and re-enabling it by selecting it and pressing D again. There is a lot more we can do though, which brings us to part 2, sound effects. Sound effects are awesome, and if you want some proof, check this out. Was that great or what? No? Well, how about this? It's pretty easy to see just using that one example that sound effects can make a gigantic difference when it comes to the quality of your videos. In Resolve, you add sound effects by, again, importing your file, then finding your in and out, and dragging it into your timeline. You can actually even record your own sound effects right inside of the program. Check this out. In the Fairlight page, we can record audio. So if we click Input over here and link our microphone to our bus number 1, then click Patch, we'll be ready to record directly into Resolve. So we'll prime a track for recording with this R right here, then start the recording with this record button right here. I'm going to do a pop with my mouth real quick. Then we can stop recording, and we've made a sound effect, which we're going to use in part 3. Sound effects can be a really effective way to make transitions flow better, or to communicate emotion to the viewer, like with this tense rise sound effect. Going back to that pop sound effect that we made earlier, we're going to be using that right now in part 3, pop-ups. Pop-ups can be anything really. Keyed memes, text, graphics, anything that comes up to accent the video but doesn't entirely obscure your main footage. I'll show you how to make a text pop up inside of Resolve right now, and we'll get started on the edit page. If we come up to the top left, we can turn on our effects panel. In the effects panel, Resolve has all sorts of different pre-made effects for us to use. I'm going to go into the titles menu here and drag some text out onto the timeline. Here we can put it right where we want it to pop up. You can be really precise with this by putting your playhead right where you want your text to start and turning on snapping with this magnet icon or hotkey N. Then just drag your text into the area until it snaps and we can start our animation. With our text selected, we'll come up into our inspector panel and type what we want it to say. Then set a keyframe on our zoom parameter and set it to 0. Move forward a few frames and bring that zoom back up to where you want it to be. If we go back to that first frame and hit play, we'll see this pop up. Now, if we drag our homemade sound effect under that, it'll bring the whole thing together. We can do the same thing with PNGs. Drag it in, keyframe the zoom, and add our sound effect. Watch that back again, and boom, we did it again. I have a lot of tutorials on the channel and quite a few that go into these things in a little bit more depth. If you want to take this a little bit further, go check out some of those videos after this video. Part 4. Shorten it up. If your video is repetitive, people won't watch it. Don't click off. I'm going to do it right now, but it's just an example. One of the easiest ways to make sure people leave your video is filling space with things that don't need to be included. Including things that aren't important to the video will make people leave, so don't fill space with things that don't need to be there. Okay, we made it through. That's done. I hope you see what I'm saying there. Repetition makes it feel like you don't have anything substantive to say. Always pay attention to whether or not you're doing this with a very critical eye while you're editing and actually while you're recording. It's easy to miss these things like it's easy to miss your own typos. That's a problem, but almost as prevalent is directionless rambling. If it doesn't have a very specific purpose, it should be cut. People don't like their time wasted, and if they feel like that's what's happening, they'll leave. Part 5. Don't upload it right away. This is the one that I feel the most strongly about. Whenever I can, I'll finish the video, then let it sit for a while before reviewing it. That helps me detach from the work I did to shoot and edit the video in order to be able to watch it from an audience perspective. If you do this, you'll notice things that you don't like about the video. I hesitate to say every time, but I've never been completely happy with a video after I've watched it like this. If you get bored watching your own video or if something ruins your engagement, you can bet the house that your audience isn't going to be pushing through that spot. The more times you can do this with a particular video, the more that you'll actually find yourself naturally incorporating everything from the first 4 parts of this video. And the more times you do those, the better practice you'll be in for recognizing them while you're actually doing the original edit, so your videos will get better naturally over time without any extra work. If you need to watch a certain part a bunch of times in a row to dial it in, this video will show you how to loop in Resolve. And if you really enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you'd consider buying me a coffee using the link in the description or checking out any of the other videos that I have linked down there as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.